Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. As I said in the last video, I'm going to do a different type of iris in this video, which is the bearded iris. A bearded iris is totally different to the iris that I did in the last video, as I explained in the last one. This one grows with tubers above ground. The iris I did in the last video has bulbs. With this particular iris, the bearded iris, there are a hell of a lot of different colour combinations in it, so you can really get carried away with it. But what I would suggest you do is to look up on either shutterstock.com or photographers.co.uk, and you'll find loads of pictures of flowers on there. If you want to research any kind of flower, they're good places to have a look and see all the different colour variations and different shots from professional photographers that have got close-up shots of whatever flower it is that you're doing. Anyway, I'm going to take you down to my board now. So the cutter that I'm going to use for this video is actually, this is a Lisianthus cutter. Now you could use a rose petal cutter, or if you haven't got either of them, if you've got if you want to do a smaller version, you could actually use the back petal off of a sweet pea. That would suffice as well, although that would be a little bit smaller, but it depends on how big you want your flower to be. So this one, these come in a set of 3, and this is the middle size in the Lisianthus cutters that I'm using for this. Now there aren't as many petals on this one. I thought they had a top petal on like the other flower, but I've got one here that I've done, that I've actually put together. This one's a peach and lilac one. As you can see, there's a little beard on there, which you don't get on the bulb ones. They just have like a bit of pollen on there. So to get on with it, first of all, like I've done with a lot of other flowers, I'm starting off with some white paste for this. Just get my paste out. I'm only going to do a couple of petals, because like everything else, there's no point in you sitting there watching me doing all the petals that you need for the flower. It's just a matter of showing you how the flowers are made, and then I've already got some that are dry. Which I've got here. So we'll start off by rolling that out. You need a bit of white fat on there, just so my paste sticks to the board. There we are, and you can roll it out then as thin as you want. You don't want to go too thin, because we are going to frill this. Not quite as thick as you would with leaves, but slightly thinner and slightly thicker than a rose petal. And then we're going to put a groove up the centre. And then I'm going to get myself a white 26 gauge wire. Now there are 6 petals on this flower, so you're going to need 2 wires cut into 3. And I've lost my scissors. They are here somewhere. I've got my pliers, they'll do. Use the pliers. So if you sort of get it round about, you don't have to be exact with this, just round about. You just need them slightly longer. And if you're going to do a full flower, then you would need more than one flower on the stem. I'm only doing the flowers, because if you're going to put them on a cake, you wouldn't do long stems on them, because it wouldn't look right. So I'm going to cut out 2 petals. Get rid of your paste and cover that up. Again, get your petal between your finger and your first finger and your thumb. End of your wire, make sure it's a clean cut on it, and then twist that into the paste so that it doesn't unravel, and get that I've gone about that far up the petal, so I've gone probably about 2/3 of the way up the petal. Just lay that down, so we'll just do the other petal. Again, twist it into the end and going about 2/3 up the petal. Just put that wire over there. Now then, it didn't have a verner for this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Parrot Tulip verner, because it's quite heavily veined and it's very similar to the veins that are on a tulip, an iris rather. So I'll just make sure that that's the back of the petal and that's the front. So the first one, the back is going to go in that way. And the reason for that is because that's going to cut the paste the way I want it to be. I'm just going to bend that wire a little bit more. And then you need something like these formers here to put your petal into, so you can form it like that. Now before we do that, because that's going to cup in that way, I'm going to turn this over this way, and then I'm going to frill the edges with my silk veining tool. And you need to get this really frilly. Some of them are not quite as frilly, it depends which ones you're doing, but that's why I say if you have a look on something like these, the ones that I've copied I copied on Shutterstock.com, but Photographer's Direct as well is another one that I use for pictures of flowers as well. And I don't know how many pages, there were pages and pages of these, so you've got loads of choice in colours. Some of them are all one colour, basic colours, some of them are mixed colours, all sorts of different variations in them. And then what I'm going to do then is that's going to go into that former like that, and then you're going to leave that to dry. Now the other ones are that was for this petal here at the top. So what I'm going to do is do the lower petals now. Again, it's going to go into my former, but this time I'm going to put it the other way up with the back upwards. And then I'm going to frill that on this side and turn it over onto the front. You could do this on the other side if you wanted to, because that's going to be seen more than the other, and it's the other way around. You just have to think about it before you do this. They do get a bit confusing because one petal's down and one petal's up. Spend a bit of time frilling it. You can go back over sections to make it even more frilly. Basically you're doing it the same way as if you were doing a Parrot Tulip. The only difference with the Parrot Tulip is that what you would do is get a Dresden tool and pull it out and make it a bit more raggy on the edges as well, because they don't have smooth petals, whereas this one more or less does. So that's going to go in that way into a former. Where's my other former gone? Lost, there it is. Like that. So that one is going to curve down like that one. Put that up there. Just get rid of that out of the way. The next thing we need to do is to make the beard part. And now this is the fiddly bit. So for this particular one, I mean, they're all different colours on different flowers, so this is why I say it's a good idea to look through pictures of the flowers, and then when you decide what colour you're going to do out of those, then decide what colour the beard's going to be, because it varies from flower to flower depending on the colour combination. So I've got a tiny bit of yellow paste and I'm going to roll that out. Wants to be really thin for this. Just get rid of that bubble from under there. Smooth my paste out a little bit there, and then with your cutting wheel I'm just going to cut down there just to get a straight line. Take that away like that, and then I'm going to cut a piece about that width and another one that width and take that away. Take a piece off the end there. Now I need 3 pieces of this paste to make one beard. If I can get hold of the paste, it's that thin I can't. There we are, got it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that into about a 2-inch long piece. So I want 2 of those. And then we're going to take another one off that piece there. Get rid of that. Then you need a pair of nail scissors, straight ones. So I'm just going to pick that piece of paste up there and lay it on my finger like that. So get it somewhere where you're not going to move, keep it flat, and then just start cutting into it, making really fine cuts into the paste to make a fringe. As fine as you can. We're never going to get it as fine as it is on the real flower, but if you can get it as fine as you can, you can come back over it when you've cut it into sections. If some are a bit wide, like there's one there that's a bit wide, go into it again. That's a little bit wide, and that one. Right, take that off there and lay that down. Then get another piece and do the same with that. If you keep the point of your scissors under it, it makes it a bit easier to lift your paste up and cut into it. Just try not to cut yourself while you're doing it. And then what I'm going to do then is that piece that I've just cut there, I'm going to lay that over the top of that. I'm just going to bring my camera up a little bit more just in case you can't see what I'm doing for this last piece. If people keep complaining about not being able to see what I'm doing, and the thing is I can't watch my camera up there while I'm working down here, so it does make it a little bit difficult for me because I need to be watching what I'm doing down here. So that's why sometimes I go out of shot, and it's not intentional, and I try and correct it wherever I can. Thank you, Tiny, for reminding me. And she's probably watching it on a phone instead of on a computer screen, and I'm sure I'm going to get told off for this. She just happens to be a friend of mine who happens to follow me on YouTube, just in case anybody's wondering. Right, so once you've done that, then on top of that again, like that. Now that one's a little bit longer, so I'm just going to take that off the bottom there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tweezers and I'm just going to press along the bottom there just to make sure that's stuck together. Don't need any glue for this. And then if we pick that up and fold that over like that, and then press again. And by pressing, it tends to open the beard up a little bit there. So if I can lift that up and show you, oops, with the tweezers, and I can show you there, and then you can play about with it and open it out and mess about with it and spend a bit of time on it if you want. Then put that to one side to dry on some foam or something while you do the rest of your little bits and pieces. I have actually got some that I made earlier, so hopefully that'll be stiff enough by the time I come round to that. So the colours I'm going to use for this are these two colours here. Now the burgundy, I can't tell you what colour it is because I've got a smudge on the top of my pot and I'm not 100% certain what colour it is, but it's the darkest burgundy that I could find amongst my colours. This is from Edible Art, so if you go on to Edible Art World of Colour and have a look on there, you can see all the colours on there. Look for the darkest burgundy, for which you're going to do, and then the yellow that I'm using is Sunflower, which I used on the other iris. So I'll get my brushes out. There's the yellow one. So what I'm doing first of all is the petals that are going to stand up, they're going to be mostly yellow. So I'm going to start on the very tip, and I need to get it quite strong on the edges here. These are some dried ones that I did earlier. So I'm just going around the edge to start off with to get the colour started there. Then I'm going to go in with some more colour and then I'm going to pull it down. Keeping it a quite strong colour right at the top there. So if you just study the flowers before you do them, in some of the effects it's difficult to do. Then I'm going to brush down with the yellow without putting any more powder on to get a paler shade of the same colour coming down to the bottom, getting paler towards the bottom like that. And if you find that you want to come a little bit further down with this stronger colour, just go back in with some more colour. Then I'm going to do the same on the back as well. On these stood up ones you don't really see it, but if you're looking at a petal that's back to you when you're looking at the flower, it's always worth making sure you colour the backs as well, because it will be seen there if you don't. If you're doing a flat flower it wouldn't matter, but when you're doing this type of flower it is going to be seen. So same again, heavier on the end and then bring it down to a paler colour. Just make sure you support the petals under your on your hand like that. So there we are, that's that one done. I am going to do something else with that. I'm going to add a little bit more onto that, but then I'm going to go on to the bottom petal. So this is the part that's going to curve down, and what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to again do the heavy yellow right on the very edge, but I'm keeping it right on the very edge with this one. Bring that a little bit further in there at the top. Don't get too much powder on your brush because it flicks everywhere. Anybody that's done this before, especially if you're doing competitions, it's one of the things that they pick you up on. I know I keep repeating myself because I've had it happen to me, that's why. Any fleck of dust, they must go over it with a microscope to see where you've got specks that shouldn't be. Well, that's competition for you. They're very fussy. Just fade that in a little bit just at the base of the colour there again, and then go on to the back and do the same again. Probably doesn't matter as much on these because with the petals being curved down you're not really going to see the back of them, but just for the sake of being picky I am doing it properly. It's like I say, if you wanted to enter a competition then you would have to do it back and front. You don't have to be quite as heavy on the back as long as you've got some colour on the back. Right, so the next thing we do then is get rid of that brush. Get my burgundy brush out and I flick some yellow in there as well. And this is where you need to be careful, because if colour's going to fly, it's going to show up on the yellow. So start off with a paler colour to start off with. Bit too much on there. And bring it down the centre, and then bring it out to the edge of the yellow. Basically, you don't want to see any white. Wherever there's white, you go over that with the colour and fade it in. Then you can go back over it again with some more colour to build up the colour to make it deeper. And then turn it over and do the same thing on the back as well. You don't need to be quite as heavy on the back, because like leaves, the backs of petals tend to appear a lot lighter. So we're not going to get too carried away on the back. There we are, that's that petal done. So I'm leaving that there for now, because the next step is I'll just get rid of my colours out of the way. Is to add the beard. Now I've got one that I did earlier. I don't know. Oh, it might be a bit easier to handle, because it says not dry, but it has dried a bit. So what I'm going to do is that's not quite straight, so I'm going to get my scissors and I'm just going to take a little bit off the bottom there to straighten that up. There we are. Now the advantage with that is I can turn it up that way now. I can now add some glue to the back of that. Don't get carried away with the glue, because it's going to run all over if you put too much on it. And then you might need to get your tweezers and just pop that on there like that. So that sits just on top of there. This is quite a sort of a yellowy orangey beard on this particular colour. That's why I've done it yellow. With some of them, with the other one, on this one, the beard on it was white, so I've done that in white on that. So once you've done that, then we can start assembling it together. I'm just going to cut some more tape, sovereign out here. I think this is probably going to be one of the shortest videos I've done in a while, so I'm not going to bore you to tears with this one. I know sometimes, because there's a lot of detail in them, it does mean spending a lot of time, but I've noticed with some demonstrators that they sometimes miss information out and don't go into as much detail with certain parts. I try and fit as much as I can in so you can see it in real time, rather than fast forwarding and flipping from one to the other and things like that. I think it's a lot easier for you to follow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend that out a little bit, start the tape off down below the petal and twist that on. Then bring that round and put in another one. If you start a bit lower down, it's a lot easier to get them in. If you get them too high up, it's difficult to get them going, and there's also the risk of damaging petals as well. Bring those two round like that. Then put that one in there, like that. Once you've got your petals in and taped down a little bit, then you can push your tape up or pull your wires down, whichever way you want to do it. Might be easy if I pull them down one at a time, so that you get them nice and tight in. This stops things from moving around once you've got everything put together. There we are. Now you can adjust your petals, and you can go back up if you've missed a bit there. Make sure that that's all right up to the top, and then tape down. Don't be frightened of taping down in between, because it helps when you're adding more petals for them to grip if you've taped down, because then this is a little bit stickier than it would be with the normal wires. And then start your tape off again underneath those petals, like that. Now you can adjust these now to make sure that those stay in position like that. It's a bit like doing a tulip or something like that, where you've got your petals in. What I would do is with something like that, I would glue them on the outside, but we're not doing that because the petals go a different way on this one. So what I need to do now is to bend the wire down on that one, but I'm not going to bend it right down because I don't want to knock that beard off that I've just put on, and it's fallen over, so I'll have to readjust that in a bit. I'll come back to that when I've got the other petals on. So I'm just going to pop that down there for a minute while I just, oh, I've missed doing the burgundy underneath that one, never mind. Have I done the back of that one? Yes, I have. So this one's going to go in there. Just bend that down so we don't knock that one off. You just have to be careful and get your fingers right up underneath, because you don't want to break your petals at this stage. It's very aggravating when you spent all that time doing something and then something breaks off just because you tried to rush it. Just bring those out a little bit so that I don't knock that off. I'm just going to do that here as well. If you open those up, then I can readjust the beards to get them right. So we'll just tape down with that. And tape all the way down. Down to the bottom. Now then, if I open these petals out, I can play around, because these are still, the beards are still soft, so you can play around with them. Then you can hopefully, if you do it this way while these are still soft, when you bring those petals up, they should hold that beard in place. So I'm just going to move that round there, bring that down again, bring that round, and just re-stand that up. And then if I bring that petal up in between there, then bring my petals back up again. They should help to hold the beard part in place. Bit better, not quite as wonky as they were. It's always very difficult to get them completely flat. And then what I would do then is to leave that to dry before you do anything else, before you steam it or anything else. Just get that up in there. That's it. Got ya. So there we are. We have a bearded iris. So there are two colours. This one's done in peach and purple, and that one's done in burgundy and yellow. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if there's anything that you'd like to see me do in the future, leave it in the comments below, or any questions you want to ask about anything that I've done. Just bring these back over again. So there we are. Let's get rid of that. And I hope that you'll all have a go at this as well, you know, so let me know how you're getting on as well. You can always put that in the comments. It's nice to hear back from anybody that's following me, just to see how they're doing. So take care, stay safe, and see you in the next video.